into the organization, and we developed at that time the Chief Administrative Officers Division of the department and moved a number of services under that. I want to acknowledge our Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Amon, who will be soon departing us and going to work for the Mayor's Office as Chief Strategist. Mr. Amon, we appreciate all that you've done for the Atlanta Police Department, getting us very good at what we do and trusted by the community. Also, you will notice on the organization chart that we also have a new section that has been stood up, and that is our Special Events Division. As you know, we are right at 2 years away from hosting the World yet again here in Atlanta, Georgia, when we will have 8 matches of the World Cup. One of those will be a semifinal game that will be occurring. So we have already started that planning. That will be a time that we will have to be engaged in the downtown space and other event venues, but we also have to continue to deliver police services to all 245 neighborhoods of our city, and we have to continue to uphold all constitutional protections here in the city. So our planning to make sure that we do not miss a beat, that we are ready, has started with the creation of the Special Events Division. And you will notice on that organizational chart, under Field Operations Division, we have the new CARES unit, which I'll speak about a little bit shortly, our mental health co-responder unit that is existing within the organization now. And again, acknowledging everyone that serves in each of those divisions for their work they do here in our city. One of our primary goals is to fight crime right here in Atlanta, Georgia, in all of our neighborhoods. Last year, we saw a reduction across the board, 17% in crimes against persons. We were fortunate to see drops in all of areas from homicide, rape, aggravated assaults, down through robbery, burglary. Car break-ins were reduced last year in our city, something that affects all of our council districts. The only 2 areas that we saw increases in were shoplifting, as well as motor vehicle theft, as we were challenged by Kias and Hyundai thefts throughout the city. Presently, we are at a 1% up over this time last year. We continue to see a reduction in crimes against persons. I do want to note that at about week 7 or 8 of this year, we were actually 11% up over this time last year. And so the work that's been done with the department, with our partners to make sure that we are seeing a reduction in those areas is key. One area of concern that we are seeing already, members of this committee, is where our homicide trends are occurring. Traditionally, we have always seen escalating disputes to be the #1 reason someone lost a life in Atlanta, Georgia, an escalating dispute where a gun is readily available. And that is changing. This year, we've actually seen domestic homicides inside of a home being the #1 motivator. This time last year, only 5% of our homicides were domestic. We'd had 2. So far this year, 32% of our homicides are domestic in nature. And so that is very difficult for us to be in the homes that we need to be in to curtail that. So we are working with our partners to ensure that we are tackling that as we continue to be in the spaces that we do have influence of gangs, guns, and drugs. Repeat offenders continues to be a challenge. Last year, we arrested 1,021 repeat offenders. This is someone that's been convicted of a felony 3 or more times. That is a very high bar to reach. Of those 1,021 individuals, they were responsible among themselves for 30,482 arrests. And they were also responsible for 6,165 felony convictions. Our officers continue to engage repeat offenders in all council districts, in all zones of the city. It is our priority to continue to focus on those that are having a disproportionate impact of crime in our city. And so when you see the contribution of personnel in our budget, that is what they are focusing on. Now, through the Repeat Offender Commission, we are seeing successes. We are seeing more individuals that have egregious criminal histories that have committed violent crimes in Atlanta continue to be held without bail. In 2021, only 29% of repeat offenders were held without bail. That increased to 43% in 2022 and now 44% in 2023. So we want to thank everyone that joins us on the Repeat Offender Commission, from the judiciary to the prosecutors, to the sheriff, to the district attorney, to individuals that want to provide services and intervention that joins us on the Repeat Commission to make sure that we were doing proper by that area. Gangs, guns, and drugs is a focus of the Atlanta Police Department. And I want to focus down just a few of the FY24 highlights of what we used with the funds that were entrusted to us this time about last year when we were in our budget process. As you know, there are areas that your police department must be engaged in. That is the gang, guns, and drugs. We depend wholeheartedly on the educational arm of our society, on job providing of our society, on those that are supporting family networks, but we are to be engaged in gangs, guns, and drugs. Last year, we focused heavily on gang members that were responsible for triggers being pulled all across this city. We arrested 127 adults that we could prove, that we could allege in a court that we're engaged in gang activity across the city. And we charged them collectively with 568 gang charges, which had a contribution to our reduction in shootings in the city and homicides across Atlanta. We also, every 5th day, shut down a drug dealing operation in Atlanta, Georgia. Every 5 days, officers of this department were going through doors, who on the other side of the doors many times were the repeat offenders that I just gave you startling numbers around, that were on the other side of the door, armed with firearms, that did not want to return to prison. And thankfully, those officers executed all 73 of those warrants without any harm coming to them, to the offender they were taking into custody, or anyone that may have been in the vicinity of that area. And many of those tips of illegal illicit drug activity came from council members, and we appreciate you for that. Last year, members of your department removed 3,197 guns off the streets. Guns that were in the hands of felons, that were in the hands of gang members, guns that had been stashed close by to drug dealing operations, guns that had been stashed near schools were taken off the street. We removed 3,000 guns through warrant details, special details where we focused on convenience stores and other locations in the city that we knew guns were likely to be used. We removed them from special details with the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney, the GBI, the Attorney General's Office, the ATF, the FBI, and the Georgia State Patrol. And we removed them from guns from individuals while we were arresting them on scene, many times fleeing from a shooting that they were either planning to commit or had just committed, but officers were able to intercede. Our license permits unit was very busy under the current budget that we're operating on, making sure that we had focused on those areas that were operating illegally in the city. But I want to focus on a new endeavor that we launched under the budget that we're currently in, and that was focusing on illegal gaming inside of Atlanta. If you look at where shootings are likely to occur in Atlanta, Georgia, a convenience store is the #1 location that there's likely to be a discharge of a firearm. One of the key contributors of that is illegal gaming that's occurring inside, where you go to the gaming machine and you're paid out cash. And then you leave the location with cash that you received illegally, and you are robbed a short distance away, or you're shot during part of that robbery. Last year, through a partnership with the GBI, we began undercover details and shut down 5 locations that were contributing to that environmental influence in a neighborhood of gun violence. This year, we have already shut down 4 locations that were illegally gambling and giving payouts that caused gun violence to be disproportionate in a neighborhood where individuals just may be coming to that location to get a vital need that they needed for their family. So I want to commend our officers for the new initiative this year, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for their assistance in making sure that we're combating that contributor to violence in our city. The license permits unit last year conducted 903 compliance checks across all council districts to ensure all businesses were abiding by the rules and regulations of the city to be a safe environment. So far this year, we have conducted 388 compliance checks right here in the city using our license and permits unit. And again, we appreciate from each council office when you raise concerns regarding businesses that may be operating improperly, that you would like to ensure that they are being held accountable. And we want to also thank our solicitor's office for the work that they provide weekly, assisting us in holding businesses accountable. During last year, as part of our efforts to support the Year of the Youth, underage drinking details were conducted 265 times at businesses across the city to ensure no illegal alcohol sales were occurring to juveniles, and that was a 32% increase over the last year as we work to keep our city safe. We also focused heavily on certain areas where we have nightlife to ensure that environmental issues did not influence unduly gun violence. One of those areas was our Edgewood Crime Suppression Detail, which is parts of District 5. It sits in Zones 5 and 6, where we recovered a number of firearms and made arrests focused on that area using our license and permit section. Also, during last year's budget, we were provided tools to continue to keep Atlanta safe in a number of areas, and that was the purchase of 2 new MD-530F helicopters that, as we speak, are over one of your districts somewhere in the city, or will be very shortly. We use our helicopters to ensure that we manage large events that occur in cities, in our parks, in our public spaces. Our helicopter is usually above, providing insight and direction so we can keep that event safe. We also use that asset to make sure that all protests that are being exercised under the First Amendment are done so in a manner that everyone who is arriving can be heard, their voices can be added to the public discussion, and that they are not unduly harmed by those that may want to come to stop that protest when it is legal. We also use that asset to find lost children, wandering elderly adults who may be at risk, to combat street racing in the city and to take felons into custody in the most safest manner possible. So thank you for your contribution to that asset, and we will also be retrofitting out our third helicopter to make sure we have sufficient depth on the bench for our air assets. And if you recall, the 2 helicopters purchased last year replaced helicopters that were flown in the 1970s, and I believe one of them was flown over Vietnam. So we appreciate you for your investment of our asset. We continue to use our mounted patrol all across the city. They are our #1 means that we protect our parks, and so you'll often see them on weekends and throughout the week in your parks. We use our mounted patrol to be in areas where we're having large events and where we have tourists throughout the city, and I want to acknowledge that group of 4-legged and 2-legged crime fighters that are always at work throughout the city, but that is another asset that we use that is unique to the Atlanta Police Department. It helps us to be good at what we do and trusted. We added to our intel analyst last year under the budget, and we will continue to do so. This gives us the ability to have insight into protests that are occurring. Will we have counter-protesters? How do we deploy to make sure that the First Amendment is upheld and no one co-opts that for nefarious reasons? We use our intel analysts to let us know where street racing may be occurring, to stop it before it gets to the city limits. We would much rather fight street racing 2 counties away, ladies and gentlemen, than right here in one of your districts. And so our intel analysts are key in doing that, and to also disrupt likely retaliations within the city limits. Our intel analysts have, over this past year, detected the likelihood that a trigger would be used to go after someone that a dispute was playing out on social media. And officers of your department was able to disrupt that before it could be played out. The guns were in our hands by use of duly sworn out warrants before they could be used in a park or a street across the city. We also continue to invest in our neighborhoods. We are only as strong as the men and women that we protect in every one of your districts. Last year, we held 4 CPI, Crime Prevention Inspectors, neighborhood watch trainings, and we will be holding more soon this year. We encourage everyone to have representatives from your district where we equip individuals, if you see something, say something, integrating your cameras, how to be a good partner with the Atlanta Police Department. We held 3 Citizens Police Academies last year, and our first ever Teen Citizens Police Academy as part of our Year of the Youth, where we had 15 students in grades 8 through 12 that were present in that area. Thanks to your help, we encourage citizens to be aware that Kias and Hyundais were being stolen at a disproportionate percentage across the country and right here in our city. Thanks to our mayor's partnership, he was able to bring Kia and Hyundai right here in Atlanta, so working class Atlantans did not have to leave the city limits to find a Kia dealership or Hyundai dealership to be able to get a patch applied to their car, digital patch, to make their cars were not vulnerable to theft. 830 of our citizens took advantage of that last year, and I want to acknowledge our cops officers that were holding those throughout the city, and we distributed over 1,200 clubs. Those are anti-theft devices that can be placed on the steering wheel of your vehicle to be able to stop a car from being stolen. So you could get to work till the next day. You could take your children to school if you needed to. And I want to acknowledge, as you saw on the 3rd slide of your presentation, that we are currently seeing a decrease in automobile thefts in the city over this time last year. And I want to acknowledge the work in crime prevention and crime fighting that is bringing that about. We also started rolling out our care units this year. We have hired 7 individuals. They are currently in training. I met with them recently, and they are excited to be on the street. You'll start seeing them out and about in June. You may have seen them already in some aspects of their training. They have these very nice, as you can see on the display over my shoulder, the green uniforms, the neon uniforms they have. Their green and black trucks will be out very soon. They are being outfitted and will be going out. We had 7 in training. We've already hired. We have 5 in background, and so we believe we'll have the full complement out on the street, particularly by the time we get to the Peachtree Road Race. We will have that first 7 out working very hard to make sure that event is safe, and we look forward to expanding that once we finish the pilot. That training is 14 weeks for everyone that is in the CARES unit. 311 versus 911 was launched this year. It is the Make the Right Call campaign. As you know, and thank you for this, Executive Director Arnold, for you and all of your personnel. Last year, we answered 1.3 million 911 calls in our 911 center. That was a 14% increase over the previous year. Of those 1.3 million, only 45,000 were actual legitimate emergencies. And of those 45,000, only 900 involved a stabbing or a shooting or a serious aggravated assault. So what we're competing with when a citizen truly needs their police department and truly needs their fire department is someone calling, needing to order wings, which we just highlighted recently, calling to ask about a sports score, or calling about something that is not necessary at that particular moment. So over the Make the Right Call campaign, we have rolled out multiple ways individuals can reach their police department for non-emergency or other city services. 311 can be called 24 hours a day. While 311 has certain operational hours, if you call 311 after that time needing the police department, you will be rerouted into a non-emergency queue at the 911 center, keeping you off of the emergency lines, but still being assisted by the city. And we also have the ability for individuals to reach us through online, to be able to submit requests for services online. We also added under this budget that we're operating under location-based routing. If you represent a district that is right on a line of another jurisdiction, citizens, depending on what cell tower they hit, may be rerouted to another emergency answering center, and then they have to be rerouted back to us. Because of the new location-based routing, we are starting to decrease that number, and I think we have almost all of our carriers on board for that, Director. All of them are now. We had some that were latecomers to the game, but we now have allowed, we developed that framework so citizens could take advantage of that as their wireless carriers, and enabled that. And so we're starting to see improvement there. And then we brought on Carbine, which allows us to get an exact, almost an exact location of where the caller is reporting their emergency. And that has already been instrumental in saving lives in our city. Thank you for supporting our take-home car program. We are very pleased to report that we have purchased 361 vehicles. We're distributing those to our take-home program that is now represented in every district. That is across Field Operations Division, our Apex unit, our ACE unit, and our TFOs, and we've added to the fleet. And this was a dire need for us. When the mayor took office, 70% of the fleet of the Atlanta Police Department was past life cycle. And we had times that we had officers standing in roll call at precincts ready to go out, and we had no vehicles to put them in. And we are now moving past that phase. We have vehicles to put our officers in. I hope as you drive around your district, you see more Atlanta police cars parked in driveways, at apartment complexes, going to extra jobs, as you see the new vehicles across our city. So we appreciate the investment. It was also the #1 reason on an exit interview of why officers left us for another department was the lack of a take-home car program. So thank you for the investment in that resource, but also the ability, when we need to be flexible as a police department, we have more cars and officers' availability to get across the city wherever we may need to go. Code enforcement continued to be a priority for us this year. We reduced the inspection times from 10 days to 5 to make sure that we're able to get to those locations. We conducted 12,607 inspections last year through code enforcement. And as you'll learn, I don't want to give away all my presentation, but I'll give you an update on the staffing of code enforcement here shortly when we get to that slide. Where is the next one? All right, here we go. So we'll talk about the staffing of the police department. We spoke a little bit on technology, from helicopters to knowing where the emergency is, to being able to know where conflict would be. But all of that is for naught if we do not have men and women willing to say yes to this department in our civilian positions and in our sworn positions to protect Atlanta. So we had a number of focuses under the budget. Grow E911, to be able to grow code enforcement, our professional staff, and the sworn staff. As you see on the slide, we have increased staffing across E911. We only have 8 vacancies as we speak right now in the 911 center, and 6 individuals are in background. So when you see the reduction in the answer times, that is technology and that is staffing. If you ever get a chance, we just had about 2 weeks ago, we did Appreciation Day for 911 in our city. Stop by and speak to the first responders if you're ever passing by our 911 center, who only have the voice to keep someone calm to navigate that emergency. The incredible job they work up there. To be able to, this is not where we're at last year when we briefed you, but now to be almost fully staffed is quite the accomplishment for the state's busiest E911 center. Code enforcement. We are now fully staffed in code enforcement. We hired 15 from March of last year to March of this year. 15 new code enforcement officers were brought on board. We now have some civilian staff, some admin staff to add to, and we will be doing that over the next budget to make sure that when you bring concerns to us, we're able to get there. And you can see where we are with our civilian staffing as we continue to grow that, and then our sworn staff. Some of you may have seen, I know NBC particularly had one that talked about the shrinking size of American law enforcement, that despite the fact that a record number of officers were hired in 2023 across many cities, that very few departments actually saw an increase, that they continue to shrink in size. And I want to commend our background recruitment team, the mayor, the administration, this body for investing in salaries, precincts, the training center, to make sure that we were not in that group. So if you see, we were actually able to grow the department by approximately 60 officers over the time that we were seeing other cities go backwards in that space. But this is an ongoing endeavor, ladies and gentlemen. If you should visit our temporary training academy right now down in Metropolitan Park, down on Metropolitan, there's a big billboard outside that says if you join, and I don't want to say the department because I don't want to go join that department, but if you join, I'll say at the Washington, D.C. Police Department right now, they will pay you $20,000 just to cross the threshold into that organization. And so that is the environment we find ourselves in to recruit here, to keep here. And so thank you for all you do to support the mayor's initiatives around precincts, around tools, around cars, salaries, and benefits to make sure that people pick the Atlanta Police Department and they stay with the Atlanta Police Department. So our goal is next year, when we brief you, we're actually give you a second year of staffing increases within the organization. And thank you to every officer and every civilian that is hearing this presentation for serving this police department, for protecting this city, and for what you do each and every day. Three breakdowns of requests for your consideration this year, and as you know, falls in the general, the aviation, and the E911 fund. Rounding those off, $258 million being asked in the general fund, 27 for the aviation fund as we protect the world's busiest, most efficient, but yet safest airport. We just opened a new precinct there yesterday for our K-9 officers, our bomb detection and disposal team, as well as our special response team. And then our E911 team as well to make sure we support the busiest E911 center state. That is a 3.88 increase over last year. I'm going to go into a couple areas, a few areas that you will see across our budget. Our people are our primary resource. And as you know, that accounts for 80% of the budget as we support the men and women who say yes to service across the city. We also have our purchase contracts. This is all service contracts to support the Atlanta Police Department, and this is critical to our success. And that includes our camera maintenance and services. The variance you see there is because of us moving Axon over to our capital outlays. Our supplies, which we need to make sure our officers and our civilians have the equipment they need. This is their uniforms, this is their vest. This is have the equipment to manage very chaotic situations. When we go through the door every fifth day of a drug dealing operation that is a ticking time bomb, we have to have the equipment to do that. When we're alerted of a lost 9-year-old, we have to have the equipment to do that, the fuel, the supplies to be able to do that. This is what comes from that budget. The capital outlay continues to support our transition to the Axon contract services. This is something that will help us become better at what we do and more trusted. Under this year's budget, you will see the rollout of e-citation. Believe it or not, the men and women of your police department can still continue to write hand citations if they give out a ticket. And there's probably someone that still can't read my handwriting back in 2003 that wanted to know when they should have went to court. And so we're going to be eliminating that. Well, we'll be able to complete traffic stops more quickly, more professionally. We will be able to track data better of where we're conducting traffic stops, what areas are we in. The court services will quickly be able to know what court date's been provided, make notifications to citizens if that's changed, and make sure they're going to the right area. And so something that we are certainly lagging on behind our peer cities in the region and our state will be corrected under this budget as we go to e-citations, which will be a win for this organization's efficiency, win for citizens who want to have their day in court, and a win for the efficiency of municipal court services. We also still do, up until just a few weeks ago, all of our internal affairs files on paper. They move slowly. Citizens don't get the closure they need quickly. Officers don't need the closure they need quickly. And we lag in collecting needed data to know where our training needs to be better, where policy needs to be enhanced, and what areas do we need to build our trust in. And so our systems are now becoming digital to be able to do internal affairs investigations, track citizens' complaints, be able to have the data that we need to be a trusted organization and make necessary adjustments around training and around intervention. Our record management system will be transitioned over to new Axon that allows us to have data quickly. As you know, many times your offices ask for data for your districts. We provide that from our report management system. We're going to be enhancing that this year as we move to a new one. And then the body-worn camera maintenance, the cloud storage, and support. Body-worn cameras allow us to look innately at events that are occurring to know how do we train differently and better. And do we have officers that we need to address because of conduct? And how do we praise the great work of our officers? I hope you go back to just a few days ago on social media where 2 officers of this department outside of a children's hospital just blocks from here wrestled a handgun from a suicidal individual that was discharging that firearm outside of the hospital. We only can give you that insight because of body-worn camera. To know what those officers were engaged in, of how they made sure that that gunman did not enter the hospital, that tragedy did not proceed beyond that truck. And so the body-worn camera system is an important tool for us to continue to be the organization that we are. And then, of course, the interfund charges that you see, which includes our fleet repair and fuel. You will see a variance there because we're starting to spend less money as it relates to the maintenance of the fleet as we bring new cars in that don't have to make frequent visits to the shop just to keep them rolling into the neighborhoods. And we're starting to see benefit there. I'm going to go through some priorities. If entrusted with these tax dollars of how we will continue to keep the city safe, our joint details will continue. We have strong partnerships with our sheriff's department, with our regional police departments and sheriff's departments, with our state partners to make sure that we're combating street racing, we're combating gun violence in all of our neighborhoods, and we're going after those that are stealing cars, breaking into vehicles, as well as those that may be committing robberies. That will continue as we use the size and the expertise and the partnership of the police department to be able to fight crime smartly all across the area so we do not see gun violence that we see. We will also continue to protect the First Amendment right here in the city. Last year, we had over 300 protests in Atlanta, Georgia that we protected in one way or the other. We anticipate that will continue. We are in a presidential election year, and we do anticipate as the year increases, we will see more protests in the city, and we do, as individuals wish to be heard on certain matters that are important to them. And we do anticipate to have visits by dignitaries coming here to the city. We do know we have our president coming shortly, and we are already preparing for that eventuality as well. So the budget will be ensure that we are in place to make sure that everyone can be heard in our city safely, and that if anyone tries to co-opt that for nefarious or wrong reasons, that we quickly hold those individuals accountable and remove that environment. We'll continue to roll out our lockbox program. While we removed over 2,000 guns from the street last year, we had 1,436 guns returned to the street because they were stolen from cars. And we've already had 499 that have been stolen so far this year from vehicles of our city. And so the lockbox program will continue to be rolled out. We'll have 1,300 of those that will be distributed across the city, and we will continue to educate individuals how to be responsible gun owners here in Atlanta, Georgia. We'll continue to support the Safe and Secure Housing Program. This is through our code enforcement as we work on multifamily properties that may not be in the optimal state around having security, crime prevention programs, camera integration, license plate readers, a partnership with the police department, with Powell Centers, and with that promise that will continue. That was launched last year with 20 details, and that will grow throughout this budget year as well. Support the Secure Neighborhood Program as we encourage officers to move into the city. We want you not only to protect Atlanta, we want you to recreate in Atlanta, shop in Atlanta, worship in Atlanta, and we want the dog park that you drive past to be the dog park you go to where you take your favorite pet. And so as we support that under the new budget, as officers move into the city, they are provided a take-home car to be able to supplement the safety of that neighborhood. Our specialized training will continue. As I stated earlier, we're already preparing for the World Cup. We're preparing to manage more protests this year during the election year. We're preparing all of our bicycle response team, our civil disturbance units, our smart crime fighting is occurring. You saw recently we were able to take a group of 4 individuals into custody that were conducting human trafficking right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And we saved an individual because of the work of our officers and our investigators at SVU. Training around that will continue. How do we ensure that our senior citizens are not unduly targeted through scams? That is through training. How do we ensure that we have the best practices around responding to an active shooter? That is through training. So the budget will ensure that we're in those optimal spaces as we move along. We're going to continue to focus on reducing E911 answer times. Last year, 2023, with 1.3 million calls, the average answer time in our 911 center was 24 seconds. That's 24 seconds that you're watching a fire, 24 seconds that someone may not be breathing, 24 seconds that the emergency is unfolding and you need your police department. Because of the work of Director Arnold and her team, the increase in staffing, the increase in technology, and the training that is occurring that has been reducing. In March, that was 10 seconds, 10.6 seconds. In April, that was 9.4 seconds for the answer time, and we continue to see that reduced as we get into our busy months, because we're already starting to see an increase of 911 calls at the same time that we are reducing that answer time. So you have our commitment under this budget that will be a priority of your police department, that when your constituents need their police department the most, need their fire department the most, that they will be answered in a timely manner, and we're able to get the emergency services rolling to that scene. We're going to continue to drive efficiency around our camera installation and networks. We presently, during last year, we installed 353 cameras and license plate readers throughout the city. We will continue to maintain those. We will continue to integrate cameras. We currently have 18,346 cameras that are integrated because of the FUSIS program. That is other city departments, that is agencies and businesses within the city that have allowed us to have access to their cameras during critical times. Those cameras have been important in stopping crimes in progress, knowing where the gun was stashed, finding lost adults and children. The cameras are an integral part of our system, and we will continue to make sure that they are operational. And we've had 20,595 citizens register their cameras, letting us know that they're part of a 21st century neighborhood watch. So if there's been a package theft on the street, if there's been a break-in or a robbery, we send you an email. Did you see anything? Do you mind looking tonight on your cameras? So we don't monitor registered cameras, but you are part of a neighborhood watch that allows us to be in that place. I've already mentioned that our Axon will be rolling out our e-citation, our Digitide, OPS, or internal affairs, and our report management system. That will continue to be a priority this year. And we're excited about the efficiency that will bring to all of your constituents and the visitors right here to Atlanta, Georgia. Our mental health co-responder unit, we have started under this budget that being processed through a special procurement, our partnership with Grady, to roll that out. This is why it's important. In 2023, we responded to 7,289 calls of a person in a mental health crisis. That's your police department. I am pleased to report, because we train as much on a mental health emergency as we do in firearm usage at our academy, that 0.0001% required any force to resolve, and 0.007% required an arrest. Because we do want to be mindful that we are being called to a mental health emergency, not a crime, and that our officers are prepared to do that. But we should not be the primary responder to a mental health emergency. That should be professionals. And so bringing on mental health co-responders to making sure they are in that space with their officers providing guidance will continue to be part of the budget. The CARES program, which we've spoken about earlier, will continue to be rolled out. Once we evaluate the pilot, I do anticipate expansion across the city as we serve our citizens. And of course, increased hiring around our sworn-in civilians as we roll out more marketing. Please repost any of our social media content on your social media content. We'd love to have representatives from every district that are serving on the police department as we work closely to recruit more across the city and diversity into our ranks, and as we activate our new recruitment hub right next to public safety headquarters. During this new budget, we will be activating the Public Safety Training Center campus. That will be coming online in December. What that will mean outside of training will be our new mounted patrol. We'll be moving to the location where we have a state-of-the-art facility to make sure our horses are properly cared for and deployed each and every day across the city. We talked about the new canine precinct being opened at the airport, but you know we do not have a canine precinct for the Atlanta Police Department now, so for the city proper. So those dogs that are in your district that are looking for guns stashed around drug dealing operations or convenience stores, the dogs that are, the canines are being used to find a lost child or a wandering adult or fleeing felon are actually housed at private residences, or actually housed of their handler, or at a kennel that we have to rent space at during a time that their handler may be away. That will be corrected, and once we activate the new campus, we'll have a new state-of-the-art location to house those assets of the police department and to be able to train them as well. Our safe driving course will come online, so everyone that's going to give a budget presentation this year all have vehicles that are driven in the city of Atlanta. And starting this year in this budget cycle, that safe driving course, the skid pad, the skills pad, the driving course will be utilized by every city department to make sure that we are good stewards of the vehicles on our city streets. And so you'll begin to see over time a reduction in claims for at-fault accidents, workman's comp claims, and other payouts that the city has done in the past because of us activating that. You also see the activation on that campus of our community training spaces, of our neighborhood watch programming, mental health training, programming that we will now be able to expand in partnership with the community because we have dedicated space for that in our innovation center to make sure that we continue to grow state-of-the-art, unique to Atlanta ways to keep the city safe and grow trust with its community. We also will be opening our health and wellness center for our employees there. And I want to commend Chief Smith, Dr. Moore and her team for being leaders in this space. We have great resources for our first responders, our city employees at the point of crisis and beyond. We have not truly invested heavily in the areas to prevent a crisis, to manage the stress of being a first responder, to manage the stress of being that one individual that has seen or experienced something that very few ever will, those that carry the burdens of our city. And so the wellness center for our first health and wellness center that's currently at Public Safety Headquarters will be moving part of its operations to the training center because every firefighter, every civilian of the police department, every sworn member of the police department, all will cross the threshold of the Public Safety Training Center multiple times during the year. So we will start seeing the expansion of that. So we really invest in the men and women that protect Atlanta, Georgia, to make sure we keep them healthy and we keep them in good space. Just a couple of things we're going to wrap up and open for questions that you may have. The expansion of the as preparing for the major events, as I said, the World Cup will continue under this budget. We also will be opening the West Side Works, a touchdown precinct, and as well as moving some administrative functions out of the police department, public safety headquarters to continue to be good stewards of that space and consolidate our public safety investigation tools. Men and women of the council, again, I want to end by thanking you for what you do, taking the time to represent your districts, to be good conduits between us and the men and women you represent. We have to be very good at what we do, whatever we're called upon at any time of the day, 24 hours a day, and we have to be trusted in the community. And we appreciate you holding us accountable. We appreciate you giving us the tools that you do to make sure that we are good at what we do. And now we open for any questions that you, Mr. Chairman, may have, or any members of our City Council.
Thank you, Chief. You answered a lot of my questions in your presentation. We've been joined by Mr. Winston, Mr. Amos, Ms. Norwood, Ms. Overstreet, and Mr. Westmoreland. And Mr. Hillis has been asked to be recognized first, and so he goes first.
Thank you, Chairman Shook. Thank you, Chief. Excellent presentation. I think I have to wait to ask CAO Amon about RM Clayton and moving Atlanta forward issues, so I'll hold off on those. What is the current number of sworn vacancies in APD?
Yes, sir. The current number of sworn vacancies on the police.
And if you could, between funded and unfunded.
So we'll start giving you the current vacancies. The vacancies that was on slide number 7. There we go. My apologies, sir. The current sworn vacancies are 461.
Are you able to differentiate funded versus unfunded? Right
So,
now?
yeah, as we onboard new employees, we're always engaging finance and human resources to make sure that those positions become funded at that time. And so we have a full commitment from the administration to make sure we continue to grow the Atlanta Police Department to its authorized strength.
And then how many of our current counted positions are in the academy, including what we call Class 0?
Right. Currently, we have around 100 recruits that are in training, and I'll get you the specific number. I believe we have a PSLA presentation on Monday, so I'll make sure we provide that to you. But I believe we have around 100 recruits that are in training. And that's in different phases. We're swearing in a group that goes to field training this week, and then we start a class every other month at the academy.
Touch some on the 911 and the strides that we've made there. What is the current status and what in this budget? I see there's quite a bit added to the salaries in 911. Kind of the current status, and then moving forward into FY25, what else in this budget helps that facility? And is everything on the facility side that we've had past issues with, has all that been completed in this fiscal year, or were some of those upgrades continuing to FY25?
I'll speak briefly to the staffing. We've added considerably to the staffing over the last year. The numbers in here are overall staffing, which includes administrative positions and some other positions, as well as positions that people move into and then move out of as they move up the hierarchy. So we've added in total, I think it's 80 at this point, operators over the last 18 months. So that's why you see the payroll number going up. And I'll let Director Arnold talk about the difference between that number and the number that's in the presentation. In addition to the personnel are the most important thing about a 911 center, right? That and the technology, the process, and training. In terms of and we've made strides, and I'll let Director Arnold talk about those in this past year's budget. In this upcoming year's budget, there are still projects that we are undertaking. The replacement of the uninterruptible power supply, the UPS, is scheduled to occur in a mere few weeks. That is a replacement because it is at end of life. The generator was already rebuilt. The chillers were rebuilt. So those are some of the major components: generator, chillers, UPS, and then associated switchgear. So we are getting towards the end of that. Obviously, we have ESINet as the new IP protocol phone system that's been installed, and then other technology like Carbine. So many of those changes have been already made. There are a few left to make. The one thing I will say is that it is an old building. There are other tenants in that building that face challenges as we do. So we very much do still have in the plan, it is part of the bond package to construct a new 911 center. That is still absolutely essential because it's just an old building and it's in the wrong place.
Okay. Peter pretty much hit everything. We do have just 8 vacancies at this point. We have 6 people that are in background. That has contributed greatly to our answer times. I can attest to the fact that on weekends, when we are experiencing the highest call volume, we are also experiencing the best service levels. So most weekends, we're at a 1 second or below 1 second answer time, and we're currently averaging about 3,600 calls per day. So the technology is working. The staffing has, of course, contributed to that. And then, of course, all of the facility upgrades that we have to make are in the running. So we have the UPS installation coming up, and then eventually we'll do a full overhaul. But there are several steps that have to be taken before we get to that point.
And refresh my memory on the facility. We are looking to essentially move out of this facility into a new center that will be at a currently unidentified location.
Currently,
and are we
a
still
location
looking
currently
at a backup location as well?
TBD. Yeah. So the overall plan is to construct a new primary center, not a 911 center, for a whole variety of reasons that we just touched upon, including, by the way, growth in 911 calls, which we are working hard to reduce through the Make the Right Call campaign. But there is no question we need a new primary center. Once we have, and actually in parallel with construction of a new primary center, we will also create a new backup center. Now, that backup center may very well be the current primary center. It may also be something out at the airport. We're going through all those analyses at the moment.
Following is a technical 3-part question with some technical numbers may require getting back to me on that. But how much of the FY25 budget goes toward new PTZ and LPR cameras? How much goes toward replacing, this program is a decade plus old at this point, replacing current ones, and then how much goes to just the generalized maintenance of all of these devices across the city now?
We'll provide you a breakdown on that, Councilor. I can tell you, as you know, as new cameras come on, they're generally being brought into the Police Foundations program. So the budget maintains the current infrastructure that we have. And depending on the years and where those are at, some of those may need to be replaced sooner than others. So we can get you a breakdown or an average of each year, what 3 categories that falls into, which will be a good indicator of this. I can tell you we have seen some cameras that have been targeted by opponents of the training center that are actually being taken down maliciously. And so we are seeing some replacements that are occurring that is not due to wear and tear or just a normal. So we are making sure that we're patrolling to prevent that and that we're adjusting for that.
And you touched on it. So funds for maintenance. There was a few years ago, previous administration, there was an idea to move that maintenance money to APD from APF and vice versa, but I don't think that worked out. So who handles that now? The actual
The department's
budgeted money?
maintaining them. Yep. The cameras that are the city-owned cameras, yes, sir.
What is the next, I know we're working on Zone 4, will be soon. What is the next precinct of the replacement?
The Zone 4 is being worked on now, which we're excited about. We're assessing the current, which ones will replace next. It will likely be Zone 1 or 6 will be the next one.
And you spoke about the take-home car program. I was going to call it the THC program, but that probably won't fly. The 361 you mentioned, is that are those all take-home cars? Or is there some just regular cars mixed in there?
Yes, sir. Some of those are going to the fleet, as you know, because we still need to maintain the ability. Some of those are going to specialized units, administrative and investigators as well.
And we're going to keep expanding that take-home car program?
We are, sir. Yes.
Yes. On code enforcement, you spoke about it as well, and you mentioned it's fully staffed. Is that just for the actual inspectors? Because I know during they have a lot of support staff too, and I believe they were kind of set back by a death in the family, but we had 4 to 5 months over the past year or so where there were no administrative in-rem hearings. So where is the rest of the support staff? Are we looking to beef that up in FY25 so that doesn't occur again and we get these dangerous open and vacant dwellings demolished in the city?
Certainly, you're correct, council member. The staffing that we're 100% is the officers, and so we still are doing the same methods we use to get that fully staffed. We're replicating around our admin, and so we anticipate in this budget will be 100% across the board in both areas.
Would be a cost. Just wonder if it's contemplated in this budget. We've spoken about it before. The union spoke about it during their presentation to us, but where are we with potentially standing up a official FTO program that where you get pay incentive for being an FTO and potential shift differential?
So shift differential isn't reflected, council member, but we are working on TFOs to have a...
You said it is or is not?
Is not reflected in here, no, sir. That is something that we are currently speaking with the administration about. We do know with the 911 center, there's shift differential, and so we currently think that's an area to be explored to keep us competitive with our neighboring jurisdictions. But you will see us rolling out more around a field training officer, both vehicles being assigned to them, and we do anticipate reimbursement beyond the comp time that they get now, probably being part of that.
Last question, but a big and important one. What is planned and what is in this budget to be cutting the ribbon on the Public Safety Training Center, hopefully in December? The security around that center has put a large strain on the department, especially our zones, well, probably everywhere across the department. But what is once that facility opens, everything's just not going to go away. There's still going to be security threats to that facility. What is the long-term plan? Are we going to continue to staff that with on-duty sworn APD officers, or is it going to be off-duty program? What is the security plan for PTSC?
The plan will be sufficient to keep the campus safe, and the threats that have rung out in this hall, if you build it, we will burn it. We believe that. And that threat has been carried out against police precincts, the youth center, police cars with this department, sitting in driveways right here in the city. And so we have a plan. I don't want to go into great detail here, council member, but it's based on technology. It's based on the structural design of the campus, and it's based on human resources. And so the same thing that we're doing now to protect all the precincts of the city, which I believe are under threat, will be done at the campus. And we will protect it using technology, physical design, and human resources. And then our partnerships. We will not let a very small group of individuals erode the safety of the city by attacking its training campus. And so at some point we can give more specifics, but I would prefer not to give the specifics of the security plan, but it is in place. It's being revised almost weekly. And we will make sure that the citizens of the city do not worry about the quality of the training for their fire department, their police department.
And as you spoke to, Glad, sorry to hear that you're losing our CAO, Eamon, but glad that he is sticking with the city. But I know he's trained well. Mr. Freeman, suspect he'll be moving into that position.
Yes, sir, and I probably skipped that talking point when I was on that slide, so I'm happy to announce that we try to have a succession plan in place wherever we can, and so Mr. Marshall Freeman next week will be assuming the role of Chief Administrative Officer for the Atlanta Police Department. He has been under the tutelage of Mr. Eamon for the last few months, and so we do believe we will not see a drop-off in our ability to be efficient in the fiscal and the fiduciary matters of the police department, and so I'm very excited that Mr. Freeman has said yes to serving as the Chief Administrative Officer. We're very excited to continue to add civilian talent to the organization. So when you call us, we're much more adaptive when we come to your needs.
Great to hear. Thank you, Chief.
Yes.
All right, we've been joined by Ms. Bakhtiari and Mr. Lewis. Ms. Overstreet, you're up.
Thank you, and good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for that excellent presentation. I mean, I always hold on to this, and goodness gracious, the information that you provide, I don't know how you do it. You really do know how to get that information to us in a way that makes sense, and it's just, you do it like for a full hour almost. It's like, wow. So, but thank you, because it cut out half of my questions, literally. And then my colleague, I wrote on one page, and that's why I knew it was slide 7.
All right.
That was really my question as well, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to let you all know that, I can feel that your budget priorities really are about quality of life for the citizens of the city of Atlanta. And that's the most important thing to me as well. Not just, the hard days when we have domestic violence or random shootings, but you guys are actually showing up in our community for community meetings. The meeting that you all just held citywide, the virtual meetings, that was phenomenal. Great participation. You answered questions live in real time, and everyone was present. So I just think that well-rounded is what I would say this department looks like, and I appreciate that because we do need you on site for the good and the bad, and I appreciate that. I do want more information about which of those positions are funded or unfunded. I need to know that. I'm excited about code enforcement going from 9 positions to 24 positions. That's very important because as we stand now, there are so many ordinances that we have on the books that's supposed to address our beautification and making sure that people are being compliant to our ordinances where buildings are concerned, and even our Campbellton Road overlay seems to be hard for people to follow. And it is up to us to make sure that we are enforcing our rules. So this code enforcement shift is extremely important. So I just wanted you all to know that I noticed that change, and I appreciate that. And that's from my last budget. So thank you for that. I wrote down one more note. I still want to advocate for Zone 7. I think that we need it. I think we need to kind of shift some of our lines and incorporate a Zone 7. Zone 4, I am so excited about our new police precinct that will be erected soon, but it's 6 miles away, and not even expressway. It's 6 miles away from the tip of the end of our jurisdiction for the city of Atlanta, from Camp Creek Marketplace, which is a problem. I actually read in a paper yesterday for the Greenbrier mini precinct, so I know we have opportunity to, fill in some of those gaps, and I hope that we do, but I still want to make sure that during budget conversations, if not this year, but I'm hoping that you guys did discuss it for half a second at least during budget conversations, definitely for next year. I really believe the city needs a Zone 7. 911. And this is my last section to talk about. 911 versus 311. I love the right size campaign. Not right size, what did it say? Make the right call.
That's right.
Make the right call campaign. I think that's fabulous. I think that's what we need. What does that campaign look like?
So that campaign consists of giving information to the public as it relates to when to call 311 versus 911. It also encompassed us being able to have a place on the IVR for 311 that allows you to dial into our non-emergency line. So one of the complaints that we received from citizens is they could not remember the 10-digit non-emergency number, the 6666 number. So that was part of that solution to that problem, was to allow them to now just dial 311 then 2. And it all feeds into the idea of trying to remove non-emergency calls from being received on an emergency line. So we're constantly trying to encourage citizens, if it's not a life-threatening emergency, that you not dial 911 and use 311 then 2, use the web portal, use text to 911. That Make the Right Call campaign consist of all of those options for you.
How does the communication get to the citizens? Is it commercials, going viral online? Because this to me seems like the real problem, the major problem.
Correct.
Not response times or anything like that. It really seems like when you spoke about the numbers, the over 1 million calls for 911 and only 400 are, was it 400 or 900? 900 was shootings and stabbings.
Right.
That's huge. And that's an area where I think that this campaign really could make a difference. We need a cultural shift, for sure.
I agree, and it comes from years and years of us telling people just call 911, and now everyone's calling 911 for everything. And now we're trying to walk back. There are no commercials. We do use social media, so of course we have our own social media platforms, which is Team ATL 911 on all platforms. We also use the City of Atlanta Police Department as well as Fire Department social media. Of course, we also use our commanders, so they've been given talking points, and we also instruct our commanders as they're out and they're having engagements with the community that we no longer tell citizens to call 911 for everything. So it's education all around, and of course, I'm open to any other suggestions.
Commercial. I think we need a budget item for that campaign. I think it's that important. I really do.
We're certainly open to that. We do have, it's information now, sort of all the elements of it. We've started a number of the elements of it in terms of the public announcements of the Make the Right Call campaign, getting people out in the MPUs. But yes, billboards, some form of commercials, mailers in the watershed bills. I mean, we may have somebody dress up in a furry costume and be a mascot for 311. You know, it could be any number of things. And so, it has to have some duration, though, right? Like with any other, as the director said, we've been doing this for 2 generations, telling people just to call 911. So it is going to take a significant effort.
Yeah, it will take all of that. And I will say, like District 11, we run the full spectrum of ways to communicate. I have a whole population that they don't do social media at all. And they still are, they like robocalls, the things that a whole nother population would not like at all. They look at TV with targeted ads on TV would work well on cable lines. Those are really not as expensive as a full-blown commercial, but I do think that this deserves a budget. There are 2 things I think the city needs to put in these type of campaigns, and that's littering in this 311 versus 911. And so this is something that I think we need to spend money on to get that word out, because that's a huge difference in what is an emergency and what isn't. And I'm even open to, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but you know how there are penalties for false alarms, for fire, for alarms, but burglar alarms, right?
Correct.
Maybe there's a penalty for someone calling about chicken wings to our 911 system. I don't know. I just know that it has to be a culture shift for sure. And I'm willing to put money in our budget to address that.
Appreciate that. And one of the things that Director Arnold has instituted is not really a penalty, but we have two people that are texting people that when they call with clearly non-emergency calls, we will text them back and say, hey, that actually was a non-emergency call. You can call 311, you can text us, you can use our web portal. And so and that's been what's driving up our web portal numbers, is like actually, and that we find that people are very receptive to that.
Right. Okay, I can see that.
And the other thing I would just reinforce, although 311 operators themselves are open, a limited number of hours, 24 hours a day is what you use 311 for public safety. So because you go into the computerized voice response system and you hit 2, that sends you to the 911 center, but on a non-emergency line. And that's why this is so critical. So you can call 311 24 hours a day, press 2, and it will come to us. It just won't come in looking like it's a stabbing or shooting, and that
Right.
will allow us to practice.
Okay. So to wrap up, thank you everyone for this presentation. I want to thank our men and women in APD for your service and for your hard work. I look forward to opening up our Public Safety Training Center, and I love the way we're using our budget for public safety.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, we've got Mr. Amos, Ms. Bakhtiari, Mr. Lewis, and Mr. Winston all in the queue here. So, Mr. Amos, you're up.
Thank you, Chief. How you doing? And
Hi, sir. Good morning.
all the rest of the chiefs and staff. First and foremost, want to just piggyback off what my colleague Overstreet was saying about just you guys staying in the fight with us. It's an ongoing struggle. Just want to send a kudos out to Zone 5, Zone 1, and actually a community oriented police as well. We created this thing called a neighborhood blitz, and we targeted a commercial strip on Joseph E. Boone. You all know the address. It's been the scene of 2 or 3 murders. All of them was people who knew each other. So we went there along with the solicitor's office, fire marshal, as well as State Department of Agriculture. We wrote about 15, 20 citations. Nothing that we really could close the shopping strip down on, but just last weekend, 2 more loss of life right there at that same property. So just you guys stand and fight with us. It's an ongoing battle. I've got a couple of questions, and then I'll be done. Thank you for the Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. I'm hoping we're definitely making our 911 operators to go through that too, because they are the first responder when a call come in.
We are, sir, all employees of the department, civilian or sworn, 911. We encourage them now to take advantage of the Wellness Center.
Good. And then I think you mentioned something about Westside Works office, Westside Works precinct or something. Did I hear that correct?
Yes, sir. It'll be a touchdown location, so we are trying to place strategically throughout the city locations officers can travel to as opposed to their primary precinct to be able to do certain functions, dock their body-worn camera, complete police reports, fill out evidence, submission forms, things of that nature.
Okay. And then the other piece is with us going into the second rendition of the Year of the Youth, let's talk about PAL. Where is the expansion? Where is the increase to with that department work directly with our youth in the city? Where can we look at more been put into that department?
Yes, sir. Both for PAL and for the Promise Center is to grow the capacity of people being referred there. And so that is the job of every member of the police department, again, civilian and sworn. So our goal this year is to increase individuals being referred to Promise Centers, increase individuals that are actually going to the PAL centers, so we have more individuals being assisted. And so the important part of our budget is the people aspect of it, referring and then supporting the center. So generally every year we still have space. We just did not have community engagement to this space, so this is an area council members can assist us with as well as we near our summer camp program. As we are filling out the various programs, we generally still have space available, and so there's just need to have individuals enroll, sign up, a member of the family, someone that may have influence over. So it's having the entire department to be recruiting to those resources.
And then last but not least, always needing your help. I don't want to send the unconscious message that we're about to send, and that's you and I sending this message, that when you're there in Vine City on daily Falcons, daily Atlanta United, daily concerts, I mean, we as this body have done everything I think we can. We put up new signs, we increased the signage, I mean, the fees. Enforcement is what's needed, and it's just not APD enforcement. I mean, we got guys that have come in, gravel vacant lots, parking on grass, taking over corners, running golf carts up and down the street. So it will take a unified team of APD, code enforcement, licensing, permit, and everything else. Let me just invite you out to a game, and don't go to the game, walk the neighborhoods. So I need your help.
Well, and certainly, Councilman, you're actually right. That is not the special events division that would be responsible for addressing what you call, that is the zones. That is the SOS, Special Operations section of the police department. So we certainly have the ability to adjust and make sure we're addressing those needs. I will certainly come out with you and walk a game and not go to a game because what you just described is something the police department can help address, not with a special division, but already the resources we have in place at the zone level, at Special Operations level.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Are you, Mr. Chair?
Just let me know which game it is, sir. Not a soccer game, though. No, please don't go to that game.
What do you have against soccer, Chief? Soccer's great. No, thank you. Thanks so much, and thank you for the presentation, and I apologize for my tardiness. I was listening in on my way over. A couple things. I wanted to first ask about, well, first I wanted to give a big shout out to three particular officers, Canton, Cotter, and also Emmett Orr, who I know isn't, I don't think Emmett's an officer, but he's...
Director or civilian.
Well, you know, adjacent allyship. They've all been fantastic to work with. And I mean, the work that they have done, that Canton's doing on our encampments and everything that he's doing there, what Cotter's doing with, especially partnerships with GBI on these gambling machines and everything else that he's been working through, or with helping us also with that same initiative and a number of other issues. So I wanted to just give them a quick shout out. Also, from my understanding, I believe that when our head narcotics officer has retired. And so I was wondering if there was also an opportunity for us to be reacquainted with that team, because we had a lot of fantastic initiatives going, and with that departure, hoping to have a meeting with someone from the narcotics unit to make sure that we don't have any fall off with some of the investigations we have going.
Certainly. So Lieutenant Albertini did retire, and he was the commander of our narcotics section. You'll be hearing within the next week who that new commander will be. And so once that individual is named, then we will do the introduction. Do be aware that we're still serving warrants. And so just this week, we've served warrants last week, we've served warrants of illegal operations in the city. So there will not be a drop off. We will have a new lieutenant named soon in that respect. If there's something in the meantime, you can always reach out to me. You can always reach out to the deputy chief of that division. But right now it's being ran, and we will name the new commander soon.
Lieutenant Albertini, if you're listening, I will miss you. And I just want to thank him also for all of the incredible work him and his unit did. And just also to give them a big shout out, because since I've started council, which feels like 50 years ago, but it was back, in the last 2.5, almost 3 years, we have shut down around 10 drug properties in District 5, some of which had been around for years. And that has been, that has been a massive change in parts of the Edgewood neighborhood in East Atlanta. So I want to thank them for that, and you all for that. The other piece was I have to dip into this communications budget, the comms. So did I read it correctly? Around $8,000 to $10,000 is the line item for E911 comms line, or is there not one at all?
There is a line item, I don't know if we have an exact number.
And there's also a communications person that is not in that line item because they're in the personnel line item. So there's a 911 communications person, and then they're also supported by the public affairs unit. So there's a lot more human resources that don't show up in the
Okay.
actual communications line. But yes.
Yes, so thank you for that. The reason I want to tap on that is because, well, I want to thank Director Arnold and Ryan Solis, who I'm not sure is entirely human because of the way her brain works. I don't understand. I've never met someone who loves maps so much and can read them so well. Makes no sense to me, but thank you. And I wanted to say, well, they have been incredible to work with in terms of my district because the majority of it lays in DeKalb County. Obviously, there's been a lot of issues with that in the past. And so the walkthrough, Director Arnold was kind enough to set up a call with Director Swain over at DeKalb, and we had that call. And the drop-offs have been, I'm sorry, let me not say drop-offs. The lack of issues, like the lack of dropped calls with DeKalb County and all that has greatly improved. That is very clear. Of course, when we have one bad incident, everybody gets up in arms because they don't know about the improvements that have been made. So one of the things that I had asked was, can we look at a dedicated comms line, a strategy line, because there's, as you know, my district likes to get very involved. And so if they don't know something, there usually means that there might be something I can do better or we can do better. And so, like, for example, I've been trying to push out the fact that you can now do the non-emergent line through 311, hit the number 2, which is huge. There's still people who don't know that we can text 911. Basic things of don't hang up, you'll lose your spot in line. Understanding that for a medical call, you have to dispatch DeKalb EMS if you're in DeKalb County. All of these things, if there is an opportunity to have a set comms budget to help Director Arnold so that we can have more of that, because especially around the DeKalb County issue, 80% of my district lays in DeKalb, and that's only going to grow next year. And so if there's, and also just for what Councilmember Overstreet was mentioning, if we can have it dedicated, because her district, for example, robocalls are going to go a long way. In my district, pre-roll before YouTube TV or Hulu or what have you, or on Facebook, or, that will go a long way. But if there's a way for us to have that dedicated comms budget so that the public also realizes all the extraordinary work they've done, but also so we're giving them the tools that they need to effectively call 911, that would be fantastic. And so hoping that if the line item in there, I don't know where I got the $10,000 from, but I'm hoping that line item will be more in like the 6-figure range, because it is a big city with a multitude of comms preferences.
Certainly, as stated, we do use our APD Public Affairs Unit proper, headed by Executive Director Spikes, for our messaging. That is, we hope everyone shares, but we do understand each district is going to have unique messaging opportunities. Some people are more digitally inclined, social media. So we can develop content now that we can roll out and share that is even independent of the budget because of the talent that we have onboarded over the last year. So if there's specific content that we can create for any council district, let us know. You will not have to wait for a new budget, ma'am. We can get that rolled out right away for you.
Thank you. And yeah, just because they've been doing such awesome work, and I want to be able to prop that up. And the other piece, I wanted to also flag, I'm really glad, Peter, I know we worked on this last year with the code enforcement team, and that their pay has gone to match national standards, and I believe we're 28 officers, or
We're 29.
29. So even one more than that, and that was a massive growth, and has been really helpful. But I also wanted to flag the interim staff. Did they undergo, and I may have missed that.
Well, we did talk about this. We've focused first on the field code enforcement officers.
Yes.
We are now focusing on filling the administrative positions that support them and make the interim process
Okay,
work.
thank
we
you.
are actively, very, very actively recruiting for that. And if you know people who are interested in that, please send them our way.
I think Councilmember Hillis is looking for a second job.
Oh, great.
I mean, if you can just go ahead and give him an honorary uniform, he would wear it every day. And so that's great to hear, because I know that's something we've been working on, and we have, a long queue of properties that we need to look at. So I wanted to make sure that they were getting the assistance they needed. Chief, I believe that we talked a bit about not a co-responder program, but I think you're working on the civilian. I don't remember the title of the initiative, but from my understanding, there was
The CARES unit, those individuals are in training.
Okay.
You'll start seeing them actually answering calls in June. You may have seen them already a little bit in some scenes, but they're finishing up their training, and we have 7. And then we have another group that will finish that out that's in the background process now.
And would you mind explaining again how this initiative will work?
So this is going to allow trained individuals to respond to calls certainly be handled by sworn law enforcement. So this is sidewalk obstructions, certain traffic accidents, power lines down, things where we have individuals in place that are sworn, fully sworn, that are basically handling public service duties to keep an area safe, that is not criminal in nature. So this, I would call it a hero unit for Atlanta. So what you see, those individuals on our expressways that are helping individuals in need, that need a help of their police department, but do not necessarily need a sworn individual to do it, that is the role they're fulfilling. And so right now we're starting with car accidents, roadway obstructions, sidewalk obstructions, helping with crowd control issues. We're going to start there. We're going to assess the pilot, and we'll see where else we can expand that. You see a number of departments across the country that are investing heavily in co-responder civilian units because of the nature of struggling to recruit into the sworn side of a department. So we're keeping an eye on that, how other cities are using it, and we're looking for opportunities because we want, when we respond, to be a timely response and to be a capable response. And we do believe we have the opportunity to do that through the CARES unit.
Understood. Okay. And that's, I mean, very excited for that to come online. And I was curious, are you all also looking into a co-responder? I mean, we've talked about this over the years, and I know that would mean an increase in spending, but is there also any research going into trying to bring mental health professionals onto it?
That's occurring now. We are currently finalizing our negotiations with Grady.
Yeah, so just to build on that, we have Grady operating, of course, the diversion center. We are in the process of special procurement, looking at providers for the mental health co-responders. Director Orr, Mr. Freeman, a number of others have spent this last many months traveling to other jurisdictions, benchmarking this, writing all the SOPs, both for care and for mental health co-responders. So we are in the very final stages of that. That special procurement should be moving through in the next month. And from that, we will have a set of resources, 6 to start with, that will be licensed clinical professionals under clinical management that will ride with officers or meet officers at scenes. It will, I think, be a great help, and we'll evaluate the pilot from there.
Okay. Thank you. That, I mean, and speaking of the diversion center, I know that we are always outcompeted with Grady on the 1013 piece, and believe me, I know that my zone wishes that we had greater ability to do that, but I know we're being outcompeted oftentimes by the needs at Rice Street and others. So one of my concerns is I know when the diversion center comes online, it will in part be used for that. Do we predict that will be the overwhelming use? I know there's no way for that to ask you to look into the future, but one of my fears is that will be the case.
I mean, obviously it's going to mirror oftentimes what we call PAD 4 now. Is there a substance abuse issue at play? Drugs or alcohol that's not criminal necessarily in nature and needs that approach? Or is there a mental health matter at play that needs to be addressed? And so for now, there may have been a violation of the law, but the overwhelming issue was codependency or alcohol dependency or mental health. We want to use the diversion center to be able to connect that individual to a need to stop the low-level violations. And so our goal is to take those things that we're calling policing alternative diversion teams now to that area. One of the outliers of that would be individuals that may be in economic issues that are committing low-level crimes. That would be another one as well. And so
this will ostensibly help us with our frequent flyer issue.
Correct. So now we're waiting for a care navigation team to come and join the officer at the scene to be able to help that individual. This will eliminate that. Now the officer can go to a location. So the same criteria that we would have called an individual for PAD resource for, we can just transport now to the diversion center.
Extraordinary. Okay. And the other piece I wanted to also ask about was the precinct or beat realignment piece. There's some folks that have been from some of the MPUs that have reached out to ask about that. Do we have permission to put them directly in touch with someone on your team?
We do. We just had our final version returned to us from Georgia Tech, and so we've just finished viewing that as an executive team. We'll be doing a work session for PSLA soon. And you said Deputy Director Solis is a purveyor of maps, ma'am. So does Councilmember Hillis. I can't have a meeting with him. He does have a map in his hand. But we will be bringing this body awareness of what the beat realignment recommendations are, and then there will be a public comment phase at an appropriate time.
Thank you. And I also wanted to, I know we have to, I wanted to flag, Chief, I'm going to be reaching out for a meeting again on the mobile booking piece. Also want to find out if there's a way for us to do towing on city streets without APD having to be present, to see if there's an opportunity to work through that. I raised that to Peter, but that's been an increasing with event spaces like what we have with Pullman Yards in Kirkwood, we're having a lot of safety issues there, and putting undue strain on APD to need to be on site for that. I'm wondering if that's something we can streamline. And then I also wanted to ask Mr. Freeman, will cameras still be falling under you with your, yes. Would you mind also, I believe I've asked this prior, but I wanted to ask for an updated map list for District 5. We had a couple crimes. I think that some of the cameras may or may not be out. And so clarification from you would be greatly appreciated if we can just get a list of all cameras and what we can do to assist with some of the issues we may be experiencing. And then I will make my final question is Edgewood Avenue. And I'm just going to, this is my selfish request while I have you here, that if there's any opportunity to continue last year's summer plan. I have to give a huge shout out to Major Andrea Webster, who just has handled that issue. I don't know if she sleeps, but she's been fantastic. And if there is a way to get additional assistance to keep, we are on the brink of losing a lot of our small businesses there. My fear with that is the vacuum that it will create with a lot of negligent property owners that are also on that strip that are having a hand in running those responsible businesses out, and that we will have a bigger issue. And I'm trying to avoid that tipping point before, especially FIFA, when we have people coming for tourism in that specific area. And I will leave it there. I am done. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Mr. Moose.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief, for your report today. I was able to watch a lot of it in the back. I had a few questions, and I think I'll start on page 5. I know we was able to talk about mounting patrol and a lot of things, but I see the gaming machines there. Could you go into how, because I'm having a huge issue with gaming machines in my district, and fights breaking out. I actually know about people getting robbed after winning on gaming machines, and we do know that they're getting cash because they wouldn't be in there that long and getting robbed afterwards.
So you described the challenge and the problem exactly. We have irresponsible business owners allowing illegal gaming machine operations in their businesses. So they are giving cash payouts. That's being watched, and then outside of the business, and sometimes inside the business, a robbery will occur, a gun will be produced, and that weapon will be discharged. And some people will be injured, some people may lose their lives over it. So we are addressing that. We have joined a partnership with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the Georgia Lottery Commission, and we are conducting undercover details where we determine who is doing cash payouts. And when we have that, then we go in and we shut that operation down. The Georgia Lottery Commission removes those machines and their right to be able to sell lottery tickets until they have a hearing. And so we're going to continue to move across the city, because if you look at violence patterns in the city, convenience stores have a common nexus to that, and illegal gaming is often a contributor to that. So our commitment is to identify who is not being a proper holder of their ability to have Georgia lottery gaming in their business, and to work with our state partners to shut them down and hold them accountable. And that will reduce shootings in areas of the city.
Can you please let me know when you come into as you're in our area, because it's happening. We got people buying stores across the street from each other that don't sell anything, nothing but gaming.
Yep.
Is in there. So I need a lot of assistance with that.
We will do that. I can reach out to you offline and gather some information, council member, because we want to make sure each council district is getting a proper resources of the department employed on this.
Thank you. The police. I was going to also ask about what percentage of cameras are operational in the city, because we have a uptick of murders happening in my district. One of them happened yesterday at Cleveland Avenue Library. The gentleman ran across the street in front of what I know to be a camera that sends people speed zone tickets. But I want to make sure that we can use that for other things. So I want to know, first, what percentage of them work, and are we using them for things like this?
We are, Councilmember. We have a dashboard that we monitor cameras that are up and down. Mr. Freeman can advise on the percentage. When I held that row, it was around 5 to 8% at any given time. That may be down because it's always fluctuating. I can tell you cameras were key last night in us identifying what happened and who pulled the trigger and who is responsible. We'll be issuing an arrest warrant today for that. That was another case where a fight turned into use of a firearm. and it was tragic, it was avoidable, but cameras, Councilmember, were key to giving us a clarity of who pulled the trigger, who arrived, how did they get away, and that allowed our investigators to work overnight to be able to develop probable cause for an arrest warrant.
Yeah, thank you. I would love you to look into Rodney Thompson as well. It's a big deal, big deal. We made sure that will not be, that we're going to get justice from your side if possible. So please look into the murder of Rodney Thompson, 16-year-old murdered on Cleveland Avenue. A police officer lives on his street with cameras pointed at the pathway, so we need to know those cameras work. The next thing I wanted to talk about was congratulations on the code enforcement. When I ran for office, to find out we only had 9 code enforcement officers for the entire city of Atlanta, I was appalled. And to see 2 years later, we hit 24. My next goal is that we have enough for each MPU. Each MPU, so 24 does not hit that goal of each MPU having a code enforcement officer, and then after that, double up. Because each MPU, my district, when Councilmember Overstreet talked about the Zone 4 police precinct not touching the end of her district, my district is the 3rd largest landmass district in the city. And I'm just thinking about one code enforcement officer in our district right now with some of the issues we have. I can only imagine how stressed and stretched that person will be. So please look at your next budget cycle of doubling, trying to first get to 1 per NPU, and then doubling to get to at least 2 so we can hit the issues. Lastly, similar to Councilmember Overstreet, more information on positions being unfunded and funded. If you can get us those numbers. And Mr. Freeman, I don't know if you got the numbers yet for the amount of operational cameras in the city. But is that something you'll have to get to us, or can you get it?
No, it's actually in real time. So as Chief mentioned, the system that we have in real time, we can open that system at any point and tell the amount of cameras that are up or down. Every single day, we are well below the national average of having less than 10% of our cameras that are down at any given time. Additionally, we do have our service provider that is full-time, 40 hours per week. They are dedicated specifically to the Real-Time Crime Center, and they actually work out of 180 Peachtree Street. So if there is a camera down, then they are immediately dispatched to actually get that camera back up immediately at any given point throughout the day. So Councilmember Lewis, again, when we look at that dashboard at any given moment, if I look now and 30 minutes later, it could be completely different.
Okay, and one last thing, I want to make sure I put this out. The police chases, because we have so many cameras, because we have the helicopters, I'm looking at all the nice tools that we have. Is there a way for us to stop coordinating with Georgia State Patrol and chasing people in our city? When we just had we're having tragic deaths from people who have nothing to do with this by people chasing folks in our city. And before I get to as you answer that question, I've been reaching out to my major in my district, and I'm not satisfied with the answers about it. Last week, myself and a group of community leaders, we walked into an active chop shop. I told the police major I saw 50 kids and about 75 Hyundais right on Metropolitan Parkway, less than a mile from Zone 3 Police Precinct. And I made sure I sent that to our major. It's an active chop shop today, as of today. And so we need some help in our area. And as I asked that question and I know it's a compounded question, as we have our police officers pulled from their zone to help hold down the Atlanta Police Public Safety Training Facility, is there a plan to put our police back in our zone so that my major can get done the things that we need help with?
Absolutely, sir. We are going to be fighting crime and holding the anarchists at bay. So we never put any more out there than we have to keep the safe. Zone 3 is one of 3 zones right now that are trending down year to date. And Zone 3, sir, has the lowest number of part 1 crimes in the city. So don't think I'm ever going to sacrifice the safety of any neighborhood over another. We are always going to fight crime where it takes us to go. And the sooner we can have a group stop setting things on fire, the sooner we can return officers to their neighborhoods. Because should we be protecting a training center? No, sir. But are we going to allow the citizens of Atlanta to see their safety eroded because a small group of individuals have committed to use violence and arson to make this city less safe? I wish I didn't have to put a single officer out there, but I'm not going to let a single group, a small group, make you unsafe. As I look here at the work that's being done in your zone is working very, very hard. They do have the smallest number of Part 1 crimes in the entire city of Atlanta, is Zone 3 right now, and they are now down 7% over where they were this time last year. And so as soon as we can return officers from the training center, we will. It's not a luxury, we just put anyone's out there, but we're going to build a first-class training center for our officers because we want them to not only work here, we want them to stay here.
So I've been giving addresses to the major. We got 3 murders in the last week. My uncle got shot 2 months ago. The address I gave to the major to show closed down. So my goal is to, I'm thinking that he needs to support like code enforcement to go from 9 to 24. I think we need our officers back in our district because to have an active chop shop that the council member walks into, to only get an email back that says we'll have traffic crimes look into it, and I can see it happening right now. I need some help in Zone 3.
And keep in mind, council member, we fight crime in all of our districts, not just from your precinct, but from public safety headquarters. The team that will shut down that chop shop does operate out of public safety headquarters. That is our team that shuts down chop shops, that takes very organized crews off the street. We just took out a crew that had stolen 60 cars in the region, 40 of them right here in the city of Atlanta, some of them right out of District 3. I'm sorry, District 12, Zone 3. So can I get that? Do you mind if I get that address from you?
I'll give it to you right now.
Well, if you can text it to me.
Okay.
Yes, text me.
Okay.
We don't want everyone to know we're coming, council members, so we want to make sure you just text it to me.
I want them to close it down. I'm okay with them hearing this and closing it down. My goal is to get to a
we want to
solution.
shut it down and keep it out of business, sir. If you could just text it to me. And I promise you, you'll hear from me by the end of the day.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, watershed is here. We're going to go over, unsurprisingly, but we are going to give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions. Mr. Winston is up. I have 3 very quick ones, and we're going to let the council president finish out this segment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief. Thank you also to the women and men of the Atlanta Police Department for all you do every day to keep our city safe. Chief, I wanted to get your kind of perspective on many precincts throughout the city and just seeing if there was any budgetary talks about maybe expanding them across the city of Atlanta.
So we are exploring where, and I want to always, we want our officers out on the street, not tied to physical locations, council member. So our goal is to establish strategically across the city what we term as touchdown stations that officers can drive to. The functions they do there is to sign on to the report management system if they can't do it from their vehicle, to be able to dock their body-worn cameras, to be able to certain functions, wait for prisoner transport capabilities. So to look across the city where that can be done. Our chief administrative's office monitors that, what needs are in place, where do we see the desire to place one, and then where can we have a partnership with the community. Our goal is that you see our police vehicles parked as least time as possible at a physical location. We're putting more technology in cars so they can do police reports from the cars, putting more technology in vehicles so they don't have to physically return somewhere. So that is where our priority is. Where can we keep officers on the street, on the parks, moving through our various neighborhoods? That's our goal. So we do look at that. If you have locations that you would like to know, does the data support placing a touchdown station there, we will certainly assess it, and we will certainly look if that's something that we believe would benefit the department.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know just looking at District 1, we don't have a precinct, and both precincts are within probably 2 miles or more outside of District 1. And so there are some areas that seem like it would make strategic sense to have one just so that officers aren't having to, are having to travel so far from the precincts when they go out on their beat. So just wanted to, just throw that out there and to see if maybe we can get some more information on what the criteria around the touch point stations. We've been working with some developers who are open to maybe allowing us to have space at new developments in District 1 or many precincts or community policing centers. So we'd love to have a deeper conversation about that.
Will do, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, real quick for me. Here's a situation that comes up from time to time. Let's say I'm a citizen of Atlanta. I need to make a 911 call, but I'm out of town. What do I do?
So you can do a couple things, Councilmember. We do have a 7-digit number we could provide you that will bring you into the queue, and then you would push that it's an emergency. Let's say you're out of the state and you see something on your home camera system and someone's breaking into your home. It would not be beneficial to call the local 911, so we can give you a 7-digit number. When you get into the queue, you would press it, you're actually reporting an emergency, and it will push you into the emergency queue. We will get officers dispatched. So we do have 7-digit numbers that we can provide you, and I believe it's 404-658-6666 that you can call, sir.
Okay, if someone could email that,
Absolutely.
because then I'll make sure that's pushed out to all the district members so that they can try to distribute that internally with their constituents. So you mentioned some of the disturbing numbers around repeat offenders. What are you seeing from our judicial partners?
We're starting to see a slow progression toward holding people accountable. I gave percentages that we're seeing more no bonds being given for individuals with egregious, 60, 70 arrests, 7 to 10 felony convictions. So we're starting to see a progressive movement in the right direction. We need more. We need more. We don't need a one-size-fits-all approach from a bench. We need to know when there's an alcohol issue, a mental health issue, but we also need to know when a person is just committed to commit crime. And my neighborhood has a burglar, a council member, that every time he's out, we're getting hit. And I always call the Zone 5 commander and say, look at this individual. Is he out of jail? Because we're starting to see burglaries on the street. And the courts have to know and take a look at the data. So it's an issue of, are the judges equipped on the bench to see what we see? And are they taking the appropriate action? So we're seeing a slow recognition of the problem. Council member, in my opinion, we need more work to be done in that space.
All right, what about first appearance pleadings in magistrate court? I know that's historically been a net with a lot of holes in it.
Well, I think individuals making decisions that directly affect the safety of a neighborhood should be elected, sir. And we should have individuals that are carrying out those functions that have accountability to the citizens.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that you probably have to arrest some of these people by appointment. My last question, I believe the budget this year to help subsidize, living quarters for APD officers who want to live inside the city, it's maybe at 700. There could be interest in expanding that this year. So you don't have to get me the answer now, but I would like to know so that I can make an informed opinion of, just this, how popular is that program? How many people do we have living here? I'll circle back with you to kind of get your impression of, whether it's a difference maker or not, or whether you can tell me right now if you think it's an enticement regarding recruitment.
So we will get you that data, Councilmember, that we possess. I can tell you officers do want to live in the city. We have some officers that do want to reside here. We want to help them because it's not always viable for them to do so. So any avenue we can open through home ownership or rental, the officers are closer to the community. They're closer to their work sites. They can enjoy Atlanta once they're done protecting Atlanta. And so we would always be an encourager of that.
All right. Thank all y'all. Mr. Shipman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, thanks for being here. Just a couple of things to underline first. I appreciate all of the work of the department. We've seen that in the numbers over the last 2 years for various categories of crime going down. I also will say that anecdotally, when a lot of us arrived here in 2022, go to neighborhood meetings, MPU meetings, it's a lot about public safety. It's a lot more about traffic and potholes, which is a very good sign. It is not what we are questioned about as much these days. So thank you for that work. There's one stat that was in the presentation, the 87% clearance rate, which is well above the national average. Could you just briefly talk about, are there any specific investments or strategies that you think are allowing the APD to be well above the national average on that stat?
Well, it's going to start with the quality of the individuals that represent us in our homicide unit. We have a dedicated group of men and women that work tirelessly to bring justice to a family. But sometimes they work tirelessly to bring justice to someone that has no family. So I will tell you, I've seen our homicide investigators work very hard to bring justice to an individual that died in our seats of senseless violence that had no other family. He was unsheltered. They work very hard. They also have the full support of the police department. So officers that know their beats, know individuals on the beat, when they see a picture, they're like, I know that person. and I know where you can find them out. So making sure that the entire department is supporting our homicide team, that when they put out, I need to know a person that may go by a certain street name, or I have a photo, it's grainy, but can you help me? This entire department takes notice, and we use our connections within our communities and our skills that we developed, whether we're in a robbery unit or the gang unit or beat officer, to throw that back up. Technology at the 911 center, making sure we get quick reports out. We can capture video and cameras from citizens. That's contributing to it, Mr. President. Also, the license plate readers and the camera infrastructure we have in the city is contributing to it. So it's just not one thing. It is a dedication of men and women using everyone in the police department to solve crimes, using Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers has been a very valuable tool to connect us in that space, and then technology. I think when you wrap all that together, that you get the results that you're seeing. But at the end of the day, it is men and women with a commitment to serve in the homicide unit and elsewhere in the police department that helps contribute to such a high clearance rate. And we can't do it without the community telling us what they know, sir.
Yeah, it certainly is an indicator of trust between the community and the department, which I think is why one of the stats that I watch most closely, because I think it really is an indication of kind of the health of the public safety apparatus within a community. There's been a lot of investment made in lighting, Light Up the Night program. We're on round 2. Can you see, you can come back with kind of specific data, but anecdotally, do you see a direct correlation between where we are making the investments in lighting infrastructure and decreases in crime?
I think we can do an overlay and you get hard data for that. I can tell you from the time I was a beat officer to a zone major, there was a direct correlation. And when we started seeing upticks in pedestrian robberies particularly, the lack of lighting, or lighting being overgrown by foliage and not properly maintained, was a key contributor. And so when we developed a plan to drive down homicides in a certain street or area, lighting and foliage coverage of lighting was always one that we looked at, and it is a key contributor, and it does make the neighborhood safer.
All right, so it's obviously we put a lot of resources and a lot of effort there. A lot of residents and community members are seeing it in other areas and wanting it in their own, and a lot of that's related to public safety. So I think that that's good to hear from you, because it allows us to continue to make those investments. I want to talk about the public training center just for a moment. I know that there's an expectation of an opening, of a ribbon cutting and opening of that in December, but could you just give a little bit of expectation setting of when over the course of, because if it opens at the end of 2024, over the course of calendar 2025, is everything going to be up and running from day one? Are we going to see a progression of things and programs starting to open? I just want to make sure that we have sort of an understanding and expectations of how that campus will sort of come up to full operational status over the course of those first few months.
Yes, sir. We will be. Yes, sir. We'll be cutting the ribbon in December. The activation of the campus will probably play over 60 to 90 days because we have to disengage. Right now, we have training going on at different locations, different types of training, so we can't have a drop off. And so it's going to have to be strategic of how we start disengaging. Do we give ourselves enough leeway? We also picked that time frame because it will be a little bit of a downtime between what we call in-service, which is the continuing education requirement of our officers to maintain their certification. So you will see us over that 60 to 90 days activate everything. We'll start disengaging here, move there, and start bringing things online. So by the time we get to the end of the first quarter, we'll be up and running everywhere across that campus is what I'm currently seeing.
Good, that's helpful. And then just somewhat related, know that there's an expectation that we will decrease lease and rent payments on facilities that we currently use now as we increase the use of the training facility. Is that fully reflected as a full changeover in this fiscal year, or do we see some of sort of double payments and then into next fiscal year? The latter?
The latter. The latter. That's correct, sir.
Got it. So we'll see most of the financial benefits that we've talked about in the
26.
In 26.
That's
Good.
correct.
Thank you. There's a note that you've been undertaking programs for non-English speakers. That's something that's certainly on my mind as we move towards the World Cup, and we're going to have a lot of folks from a lot of parts of the world, and not just Spanish-speaking, but we'll have a lot of Spanish-speaking folks, I assume, but we'll have a lot of folks from other places. How is recruitment of bilingual, trilingual officers and staff going? We've talked about this over the, sort of every budget cycle or in public safety. I'm just curious how that is going, and are we prioritizing some of that moving towards the World Cup?
So we recruit heavily from areas, Florida, New York, where we naturally bring in individuals with a diverse background, with a heritage that allows them to arrive bilingual. We can provide you the data. Right now, we incentivize individuals that speak Spanish fluently, so we can provide you the numbers around that. But we can also look at the data through the 911 center. When calls come in, we use a service called Language Line, and we get a monthly report that says what languages are spoken there. We assign those officers at the airport. We assign those officers throughout the city in areas we believe they can be more beneficial, and they're on call to respond at any time. We value the diversity of the Atlanta Police Department. We recently did a support with our Wellness Center, HR, the Mayor's Office of International Immigrant Affairs for our Haitian officers and our Haitian employees. So we do know the strength of our diversity helps us to be more trusted. And so when we go out and recruit, we incentivize people that speak Spanish fluently, and we're exploring now what other languages we might want to add to that, and we'll probably look at the data from the Language Line to see that. And hopefully we know what group we're going to get sooner rather than later, Mr. President, so we can know what languages that we want to make sure we have support.
Absolutely.
The 911 center will be ready to make sure we have the capacity to serve anyone, and then we will be ready to ensure that we have the translation. If we don't have an officer, we're going to make sure we have translation services in place to make sure visitors to the city are fully supported by the police department.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to see some of that follow-up data on that specific topic. Last topic, in the FY24 quarter two update that was provided by Finance to FEC a couple of weeks ago, both fire and police services had basically, we had made additional investments on the budget mid-year in order to allow those budgets to be higher. In the report that was given by Finance, APD, there was increases over budget in salary and overtime in the Axion contract and in computers and equipment. Specifically, I just want to understand the approach to the budget. So that estimate for FY24 year-end projection was $268 million that Finance provided to us. If we look at the proposed budget, and that was general fund, we look at the proposed budget, it's 257.7. But I know that there's also some increases in pay and class, as well as some changes in the pension that don't exist in your budget. So you have to take several million that, if approved, would basically, fill some of those salaries. My question is really about the overtime. 6.9 million over budget in this year, not that same level of overtime assumed in the budget next year. Can you just talk about the sort of thinking around that?
Yes, sir. Overtime has so many unpredictable factors that we can't always plan for. Civil unrest, a natural disaster. We have dignitaries who visit the city that we were not made aware of sometimes until 2 weeks or 2 days before that we have to enact overtime measures. So you can put overtime into three areas right now, which I explain why it's there and how it can expand. One is protest management, First Amendment protection. Then it's protecting, and we're in an election year, Mr. President, so we don't know how many times someone's going to come here, but we are going to have to enact overtime measures in the majority of those times. Protecting the Public Safety Training Center and other areas that may be under threat by a group, and then delivering police services. So when we know we've got to deploy officers to a certain area because we have a large rally or we have the Peachtree Road Race occurring and events, we still have to make sure we're delivering basic police services. So sometimes the overtime will appear at a precinct level while you have resources deployed downtown or anywhere else that may be occurring in the city. So unanticipated occurrences around First Amendment protection, around protecting large events. We know the Peachtree Road Race. Sometimes we have a peach drop. So we know those things and we can plan for those. It's those areas around natural disaster, civil unrest, First Amendment protection. We do know that we anticipate overtime in this budget dropping off significantly as it relates to protecting the Public Safety Training Center. We think you're going to see a significant drop off of that as we activate the campus. You'll use the natural presence of staff there to protect it. We have other measures in place that was asked about that we'll be activating. So you're going to start seeing it dropping off. What does the election year hold for us? We just don't know yet. And so those are the things we don't know, but we're always prepared, and we appreciate this body and the administration allowing us to return to make sure we continue to deliver police services in those four areas.
And I just want to clarify the question, and I think the issue is there's sort of two ways I think public safety in general has to think about their budget. One is, as you have outlined, mostly in staffing, equipment, and other things, to say this is what we need in order to staff at a certain run rate. But then there are unexpected things. We're not going to not respond. We're not going to not protect the president or a candidate when they come, right? And so I think it's a little bit of both, right? We have to have a balance between sort of a staffing up to a certain level and then just realizing that there's a service delivery that the residents expect. And we're a 500,000 person city that swells every day because people come here, right? And so you're protecting not just the 500,000 residents of the city, but you're protecting everybody who passes through our airport, everybody who passes through our city and our conventions. And so I think that from a budget writer's perspective, we have to make sure you have the resources, or at least we're setting the expectations correctly around the service delivery. Once again, I appreciate everything that you've outlined. I would like to also underline that what my colleagues have, code enforcement and E911, two areas that residents absolutely care about. I am very gratified to see that we're continuing to make investments in those areas. Thank you for your work in those areas. They're vitally important. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Or Mr. Vice Chair.
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, yes, thank you.
We've been joined by Councilmember Andrea Boone, who also has a few questions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I would just like to say that I appreciate the police servicing that I've seen in throughout Zone 1, Zone 4. Even I've had a chance to experience it recently in Zone 5. Not only do you all handle the large issues well, but the small ones also have been taken care of. The communications has been very satisfying to our neighbors in the community, and we are just looking forward to more and more good news from you all. We really appreciate what you all have done. The tour that the city council members went on, you took the entire day to spend with us, and we'll be touring the helicopter landing and also come out to see where you all train the dogs. But again, thank you so much for taking care of the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department. And I talked to them, and I know that morale is up right now. Thank you.
Amen.
All right, thank you. Exeunt omnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Watershed, don't be shy.
Yes, sir. That's it. No, what? I said no.
All right, good morning. We are resuming now with the Department of Watershed Management. Commissioner, congratulations on your new posting. Got quite a crowd up here, so I'm going to let you introduce everyone and take it away.
Good morning, Councilmember
Morning.
Shook and Council members Al Wiggins, Commissioner. I am proud this morning to introduce the DWM team. Immediately to my right, I have Mr. Jonathan Williams, who serves as the CAO, and also the CFO for the Department of Watershed Management. To his right, we have Ms. Jennifer Hicks, who serves as the Director and HR Business Manager for DWM. Immediately to my left, we have Mr. Wells, who is the second in charge, and he holds many positions, even the vacant positions. So he's doing a lot for the department, primarily in the area of engineering services and linear